Welcome. We have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Simcha Felder, who is a candidate for the 17th Senatorial District for the New York State Senate. I'd like to welcome you to YC Reports. My first question would be, you've been in politics before, you've been elected before, but now you're serving as a civil servant in the controller's office. What made you come out and run for this office?
I think the primary hope or goal for anybody in life is to want to do what they feel a certain amount of sipuk hanefesh, certain amount of satisfaction. The studies show that there aren't that many people that actually attain that an opportunity in life. And having grown up in this community, my father, Olav Shalom, Rabbi Felder, may rest in peace, opened the shul on 18th Avenue and 49th Street about 60 years ago, in fact. And I unfortunately cannot emulate him in terms of his learning. I try, but I would say that's something that my brothers and other siblings have done far better than me. But at least in some small way, the chesed, the kindness, and the variety of ways in which my father and mother, may she be well for 120 years till 120 years, have spent his life, and she spends her life in trying to help people. I feel that that's at least one piece, one area where I want to try my best to do whatever I can to help people directly. That's something that I enjoyed and felt, if we can call it a calling, when I was in the city council. Due to the economic crisis that existed and exists today, I was called upon to serve as a deputy controller for accounting and budget for the city, and we've made a lot of efficiencies. We're certainly far from the crisis still exists without question. And now there is what I would say is we're at a critical moment where the state legislature in Albany is certainly ineffective. Some call it a circus, some call it by other things, but I'll leave that to the people who are watching this wonderful program.
The circus?
Well, I don't mind joining the circus as long as I could put an end to it. And that's what the goal is. The goal here is to try to get involved in government in Albany, where I hopefully, God willing, Be'ezus Hashem, will have the opportunity to work with people there to bring very permanent ideas and to address the problems that our community faces on a regular basis. Because there's really no question that I'm the only candidate running for this position that, candidates in office say that they feel your pain. They say, I feel your pain. The only way you feel the pain is actually having it. Right? And Baruch Hashem, I was born and bred in this community, and my family lives in this community. The problems that people in our community are facing, whether it's in terms of tuition, whether it's in terms of housing, whether it's in terms of senior care and health crisis, taking care of an elderly parent, being able to survive, just pay your bills. That's something that I, over the years, have experienced to this day. How do you survive in this community? So going to Albany is an opportunity to represent a community that pays its fair share, more than its fair share, but never, ever, ever has gotten its fair share back, whether it's in terms of tuition vouchers, whether it's in terms of cutting taxes in this community to allow people to actually do better, and a variety of other things like that.
You mentioned tuition vouchers, and your opponent has also mentioned tuition vouchers. But do you really think there's a real chance that this will pass, given that there is a Blaine amendment that prohibits the state from aiding yeshivas? Is this the right way to spend political capital, or is it more to seek what is permissible and what could be arranged? What is your philosophy regarding how aid to yeshivas and institutions in our community should be acquired?
I think that's a very fair question, but I would say is that people run for office and promise all sorts of things. I'm the only candidate running that has and actually to this day experiences the crisis with regard to paying tuition in the yeshivas. That's there is no question that parents with with large families, no matter how much yeshivas and the non-public schools try to do to accommodate families, are facing troubling times. Parents can't afford the tuition and the schools can't afford it either. With regard to your question, because most of the time people are running for office, listen to questions and then answer whatever they want without answering the question. So your question specifically was, philosophically, do you go ahead and fight for things where you feel there's very small chance of attaining them? And I would say is the only time, and even that has exception, that you don't fight for what's right is if you feel that it's impossible to ever attain that. And I would say on moral and ethical issues, even if that's the case, we have to speak out. So when it comes to tuition vouchers may not happen snap, right? But we have to do everything we can to get there. And by that, we have many things that we can accomplish to get to that, whether it's tuition tax credits, whether it's getting privatizing transportation for yeshivas. For example, today in our neighborhoods, the city provides for transportation where families have to go to central stops and it's impossible, right?
So and the union doesn't want to deliver the children at later times when yeshivas are open later, especially for the boys.
Right. So how do you handle that? Some of this stuff all falls into the same category because the average person in our neighborhood says, we pay so much in taxes, what do we get back? And the average person says, we should all register in the public school system, and then they'll understand that the city and the states are saving so much money. What we have to do is take things like that, the transportation, for example. If the state is paying $7,000 to transport a child to and from school, give us, I'm talking about parents, give us the ability with a voucher, a transportation voucher, and say, here's $3,000. You get your kid to school one way or the other. The state saves money, and the average parent saves money, and the school gets what it needs. So
the union has been opposed to that.
Well, we don't like unions. The unions, there was a time and a place when unions, in fact, were important. My mother, and her years ago, she certainly doesn't want me discussing her age, and I say again, at May Vesum, she should be well. But back in those days, the unions were very important. People were working, and there are many, many instances, like the famous fire in the factory where, people were under conditions and perished. That's not the case anymore. The unions today are, in fact, instead of adding protections for workers, causing us to lose jobs by adding such expensive costs to jobs that are done. So the fact that the unions are for or against something, that's wonderful for those people that are being protected by the unions for jobs that we can get done at significantly less money. But in our community and the communities that we represent and middle-income New Yorkers, they are suffering because of the unions that are fighting to raise costs on projects. So that's not something, that I'm...
You're not going to care for
you can ask the union reps or my opponent.
Have they endorsed you?
I don't know of any unions that have endorsed me. As you have heard just a moment ago, I can understand why. But, that's good, and take what we can get.
But our community has kind of a conflicted attitude towards government. We do need social services. There are so many children with autism, special needs children in education. There are the sick, the elderly who have home attendants. We are dependent very much on government social welfare. On the other hand, we do take some conservative positions, especially when it comes to education. How do you think you can operate in Albany representing us both on both issues?
Yeah, I think that it's critical to have a combination when you in life in general of your priorities. There's nothing that's clearly one way or the other. President Obama and his administration has clearly failed the American people, and we need change. The president said when he ran last time that was his motto, change, and I want to keep him to his word, change. And that's why the Romney president, if God wants that to be, we need the change, and that's why we have to.
Well, isn't he going to cut these social welfare programs?
So we have to help Obama, President Obama, with due respect, President Obama find another job, and we have to do everything we can to elect Governor Romney. That doesn't mean that you or I and everybody in this community agrees with Romney or the people around him on all his issues. We know on Israel, for example, and a variety of national issues as well, that we do agree, certainly with Governor Romney, and hopefully that will be better. In terms of the social safety net, we also know that there's no way in this country, this is a country that is probably in the history of the Jewish people, we've never lived in a country where there's so much kindness that benefits people in our community as well, whether it's seniors, Medicaid, Medicare, whether it's children, as you said, with special needs that are able to get those benefits. That is something that's not negotiable. So I want to save your next question, if you don't mind. So I'm hoping that that you're going to say, Simcha, you can't have everything. Which one do you want? Was that what you were going to ask me?
Almost.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll do the interview with you. No, what I would say is...
We'll talk about your sense of humor.
So what I would say is that's absolutely true. But even families doing their own budgets, you set priorities. There's certain things, you don't make one choice for everything. You have to set your priorities. In New York State...
But is it cutting taxes to the rich is going to save Medicare?
Very good. So how do you manage to do what you have to do, cut taxes, and yet protect those that are most vulnerable, whether it's seniors or children or those with special needs? And the way you do that is a number of different ways. First of all, cutting taxes creates jobs. There's no question, there is no study out there that has not shown that when you cut taxes, you create more jobs. You create more jobs, you create more revenue. You create more revenue, people are working. A, they're able to afford things that they can't afford otherwise. And B, that brings in the tax. We're not talking about increasing taxes for people. We're talking about increasing the amount that comes in. If so,
You're talking about cutting taxes in New York State?
Yes, yes. And what I'm saying to you is that we've gone into this mentality where the government has become a beast that you have to keep on feeding. The services keep on growing because of the cost, and nothing is being done to cut the expenses. And at the same time, how are you going to pay for it? So every year the cost goes up, and the only way we can do anything is by the government raises taxes. And it's a vicious cycle. So what we're discussing is, one, you have to cut taxes for small businesses, cut taxes to create economic development and jobs. More people have work, more revenue comes in to the state. And thereby, you don't have to go ahead, take away, critical programs without increasing.
But what is if push comes to shove and all the ratings agencies says that New York State is over its head with expenditures? There's either a choice of raising taxes or cutting services, but cutting taxes will not be approved by any ratings agency. Are you going to still stick to your program and theory that we must cut taxes? It's the only way. Or what are your priorities?
But Yosef, what I would say to you is that taxes take different forms, right? We talk about business taxes, and that's why there's so many businesses that are closed and people out of work. There are ticket taxes, right? people called summonses, that's another form of taxes. And that's why in the city council, I was not a sponsor of legislation, because there are people in office who sponsor, you can sponsor hundreds of pieces of legislation. The question is whether you actually can get anything passed. When I was in the city council, some of the bills that I got passed, for example, the grace period, where we know for a fact that over 300,000 tickets used to be issued within the first minute after a sign said no parking. And now with Muni meters, the same thing, where they're all over the place. Under the old law, you could get a ticket within the first minute that you... The grace period says if you're parked legally, we understand that you're human and you may need a minute or two, so for 5 minutes you get a break. Those tickets, that's a tax. Or the tickets that the city used to issue for sanitation summonses all day long. You may be at work and they obviously expected you.
The mayor has made it into a revenue thing.
Well, that's a tax. That's a tax. The same thing, that's a tax. So when it comes to summonses, those types of taxes or other issues like that on businesses as well. You ask the average business owner today, whether it's commercial shops, food shops, there's no question the place has to be clean. But when they come in and they give you a $1,000 ticket because there was a box sticking out 1 inch into the street, not in the sidewalk, that's a tax. And that's a family.
And as a result of these nickel and diming of the business people, you're probably aware the mayor's popularity in Borough Park particularly is way down.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if you go to the election results, Borough Park brought him in. He won by a margin of some 50,000 votes.
Mm-hmm.
You can attribute that to many Orthodox Jews, including you were a supporter of him. Do you still have the same opinion of him?
The most critical issue in my mind in the city itself, especially having grown up here, as I said, born and bred on 49th Street, 18th Avenue, Maimonides Hospital, that's where I was born. My family lives right off Ocean Parkway, and my kids went to school here, and I should say my daughter still goes to school here. Safety and security is the most important issue for New Yorkers, and I would say that Baruch Hashem, thank God, many of our younger residents don't remember a time when you could not walk down the street on Halloween. I remember there being literally a riot on 18th Avenue between 49th Street and 48th Street. Who went home from yeshiva?
Well, the shrine was dripping with egg.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, you understand what I'm talking about. So that's small stuff compared to the stuff we're talking about, terrorism, that we face today. And if the city is not safe, there's nothing else matters.
There's been a little uptick in crime.
Anytime the economy does poorly, we find through history that crime, there is an uptick. So I would say that is a priority for the city or for anybody else to make sure that we're living safe.
So do I gather that you still support the mayor fully?
I support Commissioner Kelly, and I think the mayor appointed him. So he did a wonderful job in appointing Commissioner Kelly. I disagree.
When it comes to education with special needs children, the mayor has been very tough.
Yeah, so
on the yeshivas.
It's outrageous. There's nothing short of outrageous. And that's why the point you raised earlier about Governor Romney, and then yet how do we have the social safety net, that this state and this country has always been a compassionate government. That doesn't mean we're not talking about handouts, but we can never let those in need down. It's unacceptable. So when you talk about what are we going to do for those kids in need, we just had a very big letdown with the state where we thought we were on the verge of having a success, as you know, with having very special needs children, not have to go through a torturous process to get the help they need. We were almost there.
And they go to court.
And now they have to go to court. So with regard, again, to your question, in life in general, there's good and bad. And you hope that there's more good than bad. This protecting children in need, protecting those that are disabled, protecting those that can't fend for themselves, that is a non-negotiable item. That's non-negotiable, no matter what we do. We don't start the other way and say, well, we have no money. We have to make sure that the state stops wasting its money. Again, the average constituent neighborhood says, if I was the governor or if I was the mayor, we'd have plenty of money because we'd save. And in certain ways, it's true. So if we cut the bureaucracy, cut government expenditures, and there are many ways of doing that by privatizing things, the government, the less we know as a fact that anything the government touches becomes expensive. And most of the time in private industry, we can do it better, and that goes back to creating those jobs.
Come November 6th, if I listen well to the community and listening to you, we don't have any more lever voting,
Right.
but we have paper ballots.
Yes.
You're running on the Democratic side. Do you think the community will move over, vote for Romney, and then move over to Simcha Felder on the card?
Right. So what I would say is that I have, Baruch Hashem, given people the opportunity to choose from a menu. They can vote on the conservative line, which we have. They can vote for Governor Romney and go straight down that line and do better than voting for a Republican. Vote for a conservative, you vote for Governor Romney and Simcha Felder as a conservative. If you want to vote for me on the Democratic line, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. The old motto that I have is we all need more simcha. I would say look for simcha this time. You have a choice to either vote for me on the conservative line, as I mentioned, on the Democratic line, or on the tax cuts line. So you have three choices. You can vote for me three different ways. You obviously can't vote for me three times, but you can
Can't
vote
do this Chicago thing.
Yes, no, but you have that choice. So with regard to your question again, is that in order to be able to have any influence in New York City government, you have to be a registered Democrat. That's a fact. The only way, for example, we're going to have a new mayor, the next year. We're going to have a Democratic primary in New York City, and there doesn't seem to be any Republican candidate. If you're not a registered Democrat, you will have no say in the matter whatsoever.
So when you come to Albany, will you be caucusing with the Democrats or the Republicans? Right now, there's a very close division in the Senate, and you're going to be an important voter over there.
So those,
if you win.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Ein habracha sheletes evadava hasamayunayin. So I am very hintayin. Yeah. Blessing doesn't rest unless on something that's hidden from the eye. So I will not talk about what I would do until I got elected, but I'm responding to your questions. So the issue of who I caucus with, I will caucus with the party that agrees to be able and allows me to deliver the most for the people I represent. I don't care about Democratic, I don't care Republican, I don't care about these names. These parties are not religions. We don't, it's not...
Well, some Jews treat the Democratic Party as a matter of faith.
That's a problem. And I would say those today that consider other parties the same way are also that, being frum, being observant has to do with your faith. It doesn't have to do with political parties. In politics, people say politics is politics, and I'd rather not discuss how they describe politics. But this is about business. This is, in my mind, about doing business and doing it in a smart way to be able to make sure that the people you represent get the biggest bang for their buck. And if that's working with the Democrats, fine. If that's working with the Republicans, and that's fine. So it's irrelevant to me.
So let me ask you, you seem to have gotten the local politicians on your side. They have been endorsing you. You have David Greenfield, Dov Heikind, both have endorsed you. But there is a feeling that there is a rumbling among young people in the community. In Yiddish they say, Im Zufriedenheit. Some are not happy. I don't know what the majority, how this will turn out and what it means. How would you interpret that, and what needs to be done to bring more younger people into what they call the establishment, or whatever that means?
I think that it is a problem, but I think the problem comes about from a good source. Again, Baruch Hashem, thank God, families are much larger. People have a lot, the greater expenses and are very busy. In the old days, when there wasn't as much and life was more simple, people got involved, whether it's through their local political clubs or through people who were involved in the community. People who are disenfranchised, as you say, some of the younger people who feel that they're not engaged, we need to find an outlet for them to become engaged in it, right? And becoming engaged is not just about schmeezing by the Shabbos table about some politics or, having a schmeez somewhere else discussion. It's about actually doing something, because it's very easy for me or anybody else to talk and complain. But if you want to actually make change...
It's more than just having a cholent
yeah,
tonight.
I mean, the cholent is delicious, right? That's no question. But
no argument about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's what people are disenfranchised about. I don't think that's the issue. But the younger people, we have to find a way to get them engaged. People attend shiurim, they attend classes, they have to get their kids to school, they have to have a job, they have a lot of other responsibility. And the only way is, for example, Councilman Greenfield has continued a tradition that I started by appointing younger people to the community boards. That's one area where if you get younger people involved, they and their friends are involved in the community in a bigger way. The precinct council and things like that are opportunities for people to get involved. It's a challenge. I'm not going to say it's not, but I don't want to consider myself an old man. And when I was a little bit younger, I wanted to get involved, but at the time it took a lot of effort. In other words, if you want to be involved in a constructive way, it takes time and it takes effort. You are right. I don't have the answer. I was trying to figure out some way to sound brilliant and come up with a really brilliant answer to your question. I don't have a real answer, other than the fact that we have to really work on it.
You said you're not brilliant, but one thing you are, and everybody could agree on that, is that you got a special sense of humor. I've seen you in action. Is this ability to bring a smile to people's faces sometimes, is this sometimes useful during in real political situations? For the people who've heard all my material, I once said that I want to go to Albany because in the city, people I've worked with have heard all my jokes. Now I have a new audience. But the humor, I can't say that I think about what I'm going to say, But certainly pleasant disposition and a sense of humor helps very much in life in general. That's something that it's not, I haven't trained for it. The Eibishter gives everyone certain talents, and unfortunately, I would say some of my friends would say that. Does it ever get you in trouble?
Absolutely. When you kid around, you're bound to say something at some point that you're sorry about.
But you don't give up.
But it's like anything else. If you're a plumber, if you're an electrician, right? If you're a Rebbe or anything, if you're trying to do good things and trying to use whatever resources you have to do good things, you're bound some point to mess up. And I'm not comparing my making jokes to being a Rebbe, but that's a fact. And I think that it's really important for people in general in government to see that somebody can be a Hamisha person, which is what I consider myself, have a beard. Maybe my beard is certainly not as long as yours, but have a beard, wear a yarmulke, try to conduct myself as I should, and be able to make a joke and kid around. I think that it really takes the edge off perceptions that are common to our community. So anytime my Rebbe, Rav Pam Zachrein Levracha, who was Rosh Hashiva in Tervadas, used to speak about the fact that everybody and anybody has an opportunity regularly to make a Kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name, no matter what type of business, no matter what type of vocation you do. And I think that that's the opportunity that hopefully the people in the 17th District will give me, as well as be able to continue doing that for many years to come.
Okay, we wish you all success, and we'll see the outcome on November 6th. We shall win.
So I have a
Thank you
question
very
for
much.
you.
No problem. Let's hear
And this is a wonderful opportunity for me. How, in doing your interviews for so many years, how do you decide to be able, how are you able to ask questions that are very, very potent and very articulate with such a smile?
Well, I didn't throw you over.
No, but how do you manage doing it? How do you manage to do that?
And it's a combination of things, but it's observing how other people do the same thing, and trying to learn a thing or two, and treating people with respect, even your opponent.
Well, I'm happy you're not running against me, because
Not
then
the
I'd
cards.
be in trouble.
Thank you for coming on YC Reports and giving the interview. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you as well as YC Reports for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you.